Have you ever noticed the way your thumb moves, almost involuntarily, toward your phone screen? Not because someone messaged you, but because maybe they did. You scroll, refresh, wait, and when the notification lights up, even for a second, your body exhales. Not because the message mattered, but because you were seen. It's subtle, almost invisible to the outside world. You're not screaming, you're not begging, you're just checking, again and again. It doesn't look desperate, but it is. It doesn't look like hunger, but it is. You're not hungry for food, you're starving for attention. But attention is not what you truly crave. It's not the message, not the emoji, not the likes, it's approval. And approval, my friend, has become the new addiction. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind that ruins your career or sends you to rehab. No, this one is invisible. It moves quietly, whispers gently, smiles sweetly, and then it owns you. It becomes how you dress, how you speak, how you laugh. It becomes who you choose to be, or rather, who you choose not to be. So here's the question. What happens to a soul that's fed more by approval than by truth? There was a time when survival meant food, water, shelter. Now survival means being liked. In a digital world, being liked is no longer a luxury. It's currency. It buys attention, social standing, safety, belonging. You think you're expressing yourself, but more often you're negotiating. You're not posting your truth. You're posting what's acceptable, what's digestible, what will get you applause. And applause is addictive, because for a moment it silences the fear that you're not enough, the fear that if they really saw you, the messy, raw, angry, fragile you, they would walk away. So instead, you give them what they want. A polished self, a smiling self, a self that's always okay. Nietzsche would have seen this as the triumph of slave morality, when the soul bends not in response to inner truth, but to outer approval. You're not choosing anymore. You're adjusting, shrinking, editing yourself until the mirror shows someone they can love, even if it's someone you can no longer recognize. And the worst part, you're applauded for it. They love your mask. They celebrate your compliance. They reward you for your obedience. And you smile and die quietly. You keep chasing the hit like a drug, because every like becomes a tiny drop of relief, a microdose of worth. But it doesn't last. That's the nature of addiction, isn't it? The first hit is always the sweetest. After that, it takes more effort, more compromise, more performance. And still, you never feel full. Because approval is not love. It's not connection. It's not truth. It's performance. It's survival. It's camouflage. Carl Jung called this the danger of becoming the persona, the social self, the curated identity we present to the world in exchange for safety. But when the persona becomes all we are, the true self suffocates, and that suffocation becomes depression, anxiety, burnout. But we don't call it that. We call it being busy. We call it being responsible. We call it keeping up. But your soul knows, it always knows, that you're living in a costume. And no matter how many people love it, it's still not you. That's the wound behind the applause. You are liked, but not seen. You are accepted, but not known. You are visible, but still invisible. You say, but I need approval to survive. No, you've been taught to believe that. You were born naked, unfiltered, unapologetic, and they taught you to put on clothes that didn't fit your spirit. They taught you to smile before you understood why. They taught you to apologize for crying, to fear rejection more than self-abandonment. They trained you well, but at what cost? You became liked, but you lost yourself. Let's ask the question Nietzsche would whisper into your ear. What is your truth worth if it must be sacrificed for belonging? Is it truly belonging if it demands your disappearance? So what now? What do you do with this awareness? First, you stop pretending it doesn't hurt. You admit it. You look yourself in the mirror and say, I've been addicted to their approval. Not because you're weak, but because you were wounded. Because once, someone made you feel like love was conditional, and you've been chasing that condition ever since. You are not broken. You are awakening to the lie, to the performance, to the deep, aching truth that love, real love, does not require performance. Approval is counterfeit currency. It buys applause, but never peace. And until you choose peace over applause, you will always be on stage, always performing, always pretending. But here's the beauty Nietzsche pointed to in every scream he etched in words. The moment you stop performing is the moment you begin to live. Yes, it will cost you the crowd, but it will return to you your soul. And that is the only applause that matters. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into the mask you've forgotten you're wearing. Because behind every performance, there is a person who was never allowed to simply be. You don't remember the exact day you put it on, because it didn't happen in one moment. It happened slowly, when they praised you for being easy, when they punished your anger, when they ignored your tears, when they told you to smile more, talk less, be good. So you adapted. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You agreed when your soul rebelled. You performed, not because you wanted to, but because it kept you safe. At first, it felt like power, being able to control how others saw you, to filter out the parts that felt too much, to protect what felt too fragile to be shown. But over time, it stopped being a choice and started being who you are. The mask fused to your skin, and now you can't tell where it ends and you begin. You walk into rooms and shapeshift without knowing. You laugh on cue, nod on cue, apologize on cue. You survive, but you are tired, exhausted actually, because pretending to be someone else is the heaviest thing a soul can carry. And the scariest part is, you're not even sure what's real anymore. Who are you beneath the mask, and do you even remember? There is a version of you that was exiled long ago, not by society, by you. You buried them. The child who said too much, the teen who asked the wrong questions, the adult who dreamed of something different. You silenced them, not because you hated them, but because the world did, because someone flinched at their fire, because someone rejected their truth, because someone called their honesty too intense. So you learned to shrink, to be less, to hide the wildness and call it maturity, to dull the edges and call it kindness, to swallow the truth and call it politeness. Carl Jung called this exile the shadow, the part of the psyche we reject because it threatens our survival in the collective. The shadow isn't evil. It's honest, and honesty scares people. So we choose the persona, the social mask, the good student, the reliable friend, the agreeable partner, the impressive worker. We forget that masks aren't evil either. They're tools. But when you forget it's a mask, you lose yourself. You start living for the mirror. You become an actor without a script, a voice that always echoes what they want to hear. You laugh at jokes you hate. You say yes when your body screams no. You stay silent while your soul bleeds. And everyone claps, because the world doesn't reward authenticity. It rewards consistency, even if that consistency is a lie, even if it's killing you. So you wake up one day and you're successful. You're liked, you're needed, and completely, utterly invisible, because the world sees the mask, not you. Let's go deeper. Why do we keep the mask? Because it works. It gets us jobs, friends, praise, but it also traps us in relationships that drain us, in careers that numb us, in identities that limit us. Every time you fake a laugh, you reinforce the lie. Every time you stay silent, you betray the voice within. Every time you wear the mask, you send yourself a message. The real me is not safe here. And over time, you believe it. You stop trying to be seen. You start performing before anyone even expects it. You call it being responsible. But really, it's just fear. Fear of being too much. Fear of being abandoned. Fear that if they saw what's under the mask, they'd leave. But here's the truth. They already have. They don't love you. They love the version of you that doesn't exist. The one who never complains, never breaks, never says, "This is not enough for me." And you become a ghost in your own life, always present, never truly there. Carl Jung warned of this psychological death. The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. But it's not just the parents, it's all of us. We wear masks passed down through generations. Inherited silence, inherited shame, inherited performance. And unless we break the pattern, we pass it on. To our children, to our partners, to the next version of us. The question is no longer, why do I wear the mask? The question is, am I willing to live my entire life pretending? And if the answer is no, then everything must change. Taking off the mask isn't a grand gesture. It starts with a whisper. A truth you speak even though your voice trembles. A no you say even though you're scared. A silence you allow instead of filling it with performance. And when you take it off, when you really take it off, it will be terrifying. People will resist. Some will guilt you. Some will leave. Some will beg for the mask to come back. Because your authenticity will unmask their comfort. Your truth will remind them of their lies. Your presence will demand something real. And not everyone wants that. But here's what Nietzsche would say if he sat across from you now. The individual has always had to struggle to not be overwhelmed by the tribe. And struggle you must. Because what's on the other side of the mask is not shame, it's power. It's not rejection, it's real love. The kind that sees you, holds you, chooses you. Not the persona, you. But that love cannot find you while you're hiding. It can only meet you at the level of your truth. So ask yourself, who am I? When no one is watching. And dare, just once, to show them. Because the world doesn't need another performer. It needs someone willing to be real, even if it costs the room. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into the place the mask was born, the wound. Because behind every performance is a part of you that never felt safe enough to be seen. And it's time to finally look at it. There's a kind of smile that doesn't come from joy. It's practiced, polite. It knows when to show up, at meetings, at dinner, in photos, in conversations that feel like performances. It's the smile you wear when you're falling apart. The one that says, "I'm fine," so convincingly that even you start to believe it. But when the lights go out, when no one's looking, when you're finally alone, you feel it. The ache, the exhaustion, the quiet voice whispering, "This isn't me." And suddenly you realize You've become excellent at pretending you're not in pain. You've become addicted to looking okay. Because if you're okay, you're lovable. If you're okay, they'll stay. If you're okay, you won't be a burden. But what if the smile is a lie? What if behind every desperate need for approval, there is a wound? Wounds rarely bleed in public. They hide, they fester. They shape you from the inside out, not through screams, but through choices. You choose silence instead of confrontation. You choose perfection instead of vulnerability. You choose control instead of intimacy. Not because you're fake, but because you're afraid. Afraid that if they see the real you, they'll run. Afraid that if you show your scars, they'll flinch. Afraid that if you stop smiling, they'll stop loving. So you smile, even when your chest is heavy, even when your heart is aching, even when your soul is screaming. Because somewhere, a long time ago, you learned that your pain made people leave. Maybe it was a parent who punished your anger, a friend who disappeared when you cried too much, a teacher who praised you when you kept quiet. So you began to equate being loved with being easy, being accepted with being agreeable, being chosen with being invisible. And the wound took root. Carl Jung called this disowned part of the self the shadow. It is the container for everything you were told was too much. Your rage, your power, your sexuality, your sadness, your sensitivity, your ambition. All of it cast into the dark because someone told you it was dangerous or ugly or inconvenient. So you buried it and built a life above it, a successful life, a likable life, a life that looks perfect on the outside. But on the inside, you feel like a stranger to yourself because you don't just hide the pain. You hide the parts of you that feel the pain. And the more you hide, the more approval you get. And the more approval you get, the less you trust it. Because deep down you know they don't love you. They love the role you play. So even in the applause, you feel alone. Because what good is love that never touches your truth? What good is connection if it requires your disappearance? What good is being chosen if it means abandoning yourself? Now let's go deeper. Let's speak to the wound, the part of you that never got to speak, the part that waited for someone to ask, "Are you okay?" and meant it, the part that wanted to say, "No, I'm not, and I don't want to pretend anymore." But no one asked, so you learned to heal yourself by being good, by being quiet, by staying small. But here's the thing about wounds. They don't heal from silence. They heal from truth. And your truth is this. You are still carrying pain that was never yours to hold. You are still trying to fix a version of yourself that was never broken. You are still trying to earn the love you should have been given freely. And you're doing it by smiling, performing, pleasing, but it's not working anymore. Because the wound is tired of being hidden. It's not trying to ruin your life. It's trying to free you from the lie that says you are only lovable when you're easy, the lie that says you must smile to be safe, the lie that says your worth is determined by their comfort. And the only way to heal is to stop smiling when you're in pain, to stop pretending when you want to scream, to stop shrinking when you want to be seen. There's a version of you beneath the smile, not the smiling mask, not the approval-seeking persona, but the one who wept alone as a child, the one who stayed quiet to avoid punishment, the one who felt too deeply in a world that praised numbness. That version is still here, still waiting, and the only way home is through the wound, through the grief, through the honesty of saying, "I am not okay." Nietzsche said, Invisible threads are the strongest ties. And what stronger thread is there than the one that connects your pain to your truth? That thread is not weakness, it is your becoming. It is the part of you that refuses to die quietly, the part that dares to stop smiling, the part that longs to be held, not for being okay, but for being real. So let the smile drop, let the truth rise, let the wound be seen, because on the other side of this pain is not just healing, it's wholeness. In the next chapter, we will face the withdrawal, the storm that comes when you stop chasing approval, because breaking free from the drug always comes with the shaking. But that trembling, it's just the sound of your soul returning. It starts with silence, not dramatic, not loud, just space. A message left unanswered, a room you leave early, a truth you say instead of a joke, a no that lands like a thunderclap in a room that only ever heard yes. And then it begins, the shift. People pull away, not suddenly, but subtly. Conversations grow shorter, eyes avoid yours. The invitations stop. And you feel it, don't you? The ache, the emptiness, the doubt. Did I do something wrong? No. You just stopped pretending. You broke the contract you never signed, but always obeyed. I will be who you want if you keep loving me. Now the mask is off, and so are they. Welcome to withdrawal.
When you see him stop performing for approval, it's not peaceful at first. It's brutal. Because addiction doesn't leave quietly. Approval isn't just emotional validation, it's neurological. Every like, every nod, every "I'm proud of you," they're dopamine. You've been fed by it for years, and now you've chosen starvation. Not because you want to suffer, but because you're done being fed lies. So your body rebels. You wake up anxious. Your mind replays conversations. Did I sound too harsh? Maybe I should have explained more. What if they think I've changed? They do. Because you have. You've stopped being the echo of their comfort. And now they don't recognize you. But the pain you feel isn't just from losing them. It's from losing the version of you that lived for them. The version who always replied, always agreed, always adjusted. That version was exhausted. But they loved it. And now they are grieving it. So they guilt you. You've changed. Yes. You've become distant. Yes. You're not the same person. Exactly. But here's the cruel twist. The more you honor your truth, the more you are punished. Because most people don't want the real you. They want the manageable you. The compliant you. The agreeable you. The version of you that doesn't challenge their illusion. And when you stop providing that, they leave. Or worse, they stay but become cold. And you question everything. You wonder if it's worth it. You wonder if authenticity is just another word for loneliness. But here's the truth. You're not being abandoned. You're being revealed. This is not rejection. This is refinement. Every connection that falls away now was built on your obedience. Every friendship that fades was attached to your persona. Every relationship that cracks was cemented by your self-abandonment. And now that you're choosing you, they no longer know how to love you, because they never really did. They loved the part of you that made them comfortable. And now you've made yourself uncomfortable for the sake of truth. That is not failure. That is individuation. Carl Jung wrote, "To become conscious is a privilege and a curse. This is the curse, the shaking, the space, the ache of not being seen after finally showing yourself. But it's also the beginning of you." Let's talk about the silence. It feels empty, but it's not. It's space. Space where guilt used to live. Space where performance used to crowd. Space where their expectations used to suffocate you. You are not losing love. You are losing the illusion of it. Because love that requires performance was never love. Love that fears your truth was never truth. And love that leaves when you choose yourself was never really here. So don't mourn the silence. Enter it. Because in that silence, you will hear something else. Something soft, ancient, fierce. Your own voice. Not the voice of reaction. Not the voice of approval chasing. Not the voice of fear, but the voice you buried long ago when you decided they mattered more than you. That voice is still here, waiting. Not to be impressive, not to be liked, but to be real. And here's the thing no one tells you about withdrawal. The longer you stay in the silence, the more it begins to sing. Not with applause, but with clarity. You begin to realize you're not alone. You're with yourself. And for the first time, that's enough. Nietzsche said, "He who would learn to fly one day must first learn to stand and walk and run and climb and dance. One cannot fly into flying. You are learning to stand, to speak, to be, without applause, without performance, without the safety of the crowd. It hurts, because you've spent years being trained to survive through approval. But now you're choosing something else, sovereignty. You're not chasing anymore. You're not begging. You're not shrinking. You're becoming solid. Still, unmoved. And though the crowd has thinned, you remain. And that is the revolution. Because what is more terrifying to a world that thrives on control than a person who no longer needs to be liked? So if you feel lonely, good. That means the drug is leaving your system. And what rises next will no longer be shaped by fear. In the final chapter, we will meet that version of you, the one who walks alone. Not because they're unloved, but because they are free. One day you wake up and it's quiet. No new messages, no one waiting on a reply, no one expecting you to explain yourself. No tension in your chest about what they might think. Just silence. But this time, it's not scary. It's still, clear, holy. You walk past a mirror and realize you're not checking how you look. You're not adjusting yourself for their eyes. You just walk. You just breathe. And for the first time, you don't need to be seen. You just are. This is what's on the other side of approval. Not applause, not recognition, but sovereignty, the sacred state of not performing, of not bending your truth to fit someone's comfort, of not asking, "Do you still love me if I choose me?" Because now you love you. Not in a narcissistic way, not in a loud, manic, prove-it-to-the-world kind of way, but in a quiet, bone-deep, I am with me kind of way. That's what healing actually is, not becoming more likable, but becoming more whole. You start to feel your own rhythm. You move slower, more intentionally. You stop apologizing for your energy. You stop editing your presence. And the funny thing? The world doesn't end. Yes, some people drift, but the ones who remain see you. Not the mask, not the performance, not the shell, you. Because now you're speaking in a voice that only truth can hear, no longer filtered, no longer rehearsed. You're not selling yourself anymore. You're simply showing up. And that changes everything. Relationships become more honest. Work becomes more meaningful. Life becomes quieter, but richer. Because you are no longer looking out there for what was missing in here. You've become your own reference point, your own compass, your own damn applause. And that's freedom. Let's talk about this you. This self beyond the applause. They are not fragile. They are not reactive. They are not shaped by trends or threatened by silence. They don't crave the room. They carry the room. They are not polite, but they are powerful. Not agreeable, but aligned. They don't need attention to exist, because they are rooted. Carl Jung called this the individuated self, the part of us that is undivided, no longer torn between pleasing and truth, no longer split between persona and shadow, no longer performing for safety, but fully integrated, present, whole. This self doesn't just speak the truth, they are the truth. And here's the paradox. The more you become this version of yourself, the less you fit. In rooms that require silence, in roles that demand performance, in relationships built on control. You outgrow them because you're no longer there to be liked. You're there to be real. And if that makes you unlikable, so be it. Because being liked never gave you peace, but being honest, being whole, that's peace in its purest form. You no longer apologize for your power, for your stillness, for your standards. You don't explain why you walked away. You just walk. Not because you're angry, but because you're done negotiating your worth. You don't rush to fill the silence. Because you know, the people meant for you will not be scared of your quiet. They will not need you to shrink so they can feel tall. They will not need you to soften so they can feel safe. They will not love the mask. They will love the face behind it. Because now, that's all you offer. And that is enough. Because you are enough. Not the performance, not the projection, not the persona. You. Nietzsche once said, "Become who you are, not who they want, not who they prefer, not who gets applause, but who you are, without edits, without masks, without fear." That's what you've done. You've stepped off the stage, thrown down the costume, walked out of the spotlight, into the wild, into the quiet, into the self. Yes, the approval is gone. Yes, the applause has stopped. But listen closely. Do you hear that? That's the sound of your own heartbeat. That's the sound of truth. That's the only music you'll ever need. And from this moment forward, you don't perform, you don't chase, you don't beg, you walk, and the world shifts around you.